June 14th, 1945. Norfolk, England. 09 to 15 hours. The truck's engine coughed once and died. 41 women sat in the canvas-covered bed, hands gripping the wooden benches, watching pale morning light filter through the gaps. Outside, the sound of boots on gravel. Then voices, British accents, low and procedural. One of them laughed at something. The sound was so ordinary it felt obscene. The tailgate dropped. "Right then," a sergeant said in accented German. "Everyone out. Watch the step." They climbed down into a farmyard that smelled of wet earth and manure, and something green they couldn't name. Ahead stood a stone farmhouse. 2 stories, slate roof, climbing roses by the door. To the left, a barn. To the right, fields stretching toward a line of trees. Sheep grazed in the distance, white against green. A woman near the front, Hannah, 28, former radio operator from Hamburg, whispered to the woman beside her, "This can't be real." But it was real. The farmhouse, the roses, the sheep. And standing in the doorway, wiping his hands on a flour-dusted apron, was the farmer himself. He stepped into the yard. Older man, 60 maybe, greying hair, work-worn hands. He looked at the assembled women, nodded once to the sergeant, and then spoke. In German. Perfect German. Not the careful, accented German of the British soldiers, but the fluid, idiomatic German of someone who'd spoken it since childhood. "Welcome," he said. "I'm Thomas Schneider. This is my farm. You'll be working here, helping with the harvest, tending the animals, general labour. In exchange, you'll receive housing, meals and wages. Any questions?" Silence. Hannah stared at him. Schneider. A German name, a German farmer. In England. The sergeant cleared his throat. "Mr. Schneider's family has been in Norfolk for 3 generations. His grandfather emigrated in 1871. Schneider nodded. "That's right, British citizen. Born here. But yes, I speak German. My mother insisted." He gestured toward the barn. "There are bunks set up. Not fancy, but clean. Settle in and we'll talk about the work after lunch." He turned and walked back to the farmhouse. The women stood in the yard, stunned. They'd expected cruelty. They'd expected hatred. They'd expected to be treated like the enemy they were. Instead, they'd found a British farmer with a German name who spoke their language and had just invited them to lunch. If this moment already changed how you see the war, subscribe. The next will surprise you even more. Hannah had been a Nachrichtenhelferin, a signals auxiliary with the Luftwaffe. She'd joined in 1942 at 25 because the pay was better than factory work and because the recruitment posters had promised purpose and patriotism. They'd trained her in radio operation and stationed her at an airfield outside Bremen. For 2 years, she'd sat in a concrete bunker and routed messages, flight schedules, weather reports, operational orders she didn't fully understand. She'd worn the uniform, sworn the oath, and done the job. She hadn't thought much about what it meant. By April 1945, the airfield was rubble. Allied bombers had reduced it to craters and twisted metal. Hannah's unit had been ordered west, toward British lines, in the desperate hope that surrender to the Anglo-Americans would be preferable to capture by the Soviets. They'd walked for a week, slept in barns and ditches, ate whatever they could find. On the 8th day, they'd crossed a bridge and found British soldiers waiting on the other side. A captain, Scottish, efficient, not unkind, had processed them quickly. "You're prisoners of war. You'll be transported to England for detention. Follow orders and you'll be treated fairly." Hannah hadn't believed him, but she'd climbed onto the truck anyway because there was no alternative. The journey to England had been long and surreal. First a train to the coast, crowded, cold, windows painted black. Then a ship across the North Sea, a converted troop transport that pitched in the swells, leaving half the women seasick. Hannah had stood on deck as the English coast appeared through morning fog. She'd expected bombed cities, destruction, the mirror image of Germany's devastation. Instead, she saw green, rolling hills, villages with intact roofs, church spires, farmland. It was as if the war had never touched this place. The woman beside her, Liesel, younger, a typist from Berlin, had whispered, "How is it still standing?" Hannah had no answer. Now, standing in Thomas Schneider's farmyard, watching sheep graze in fields that had never seen a bomb crater, Hannah thought, "They fought us for 6 years and their country survived intact. What does that mean?" The barn had been converted into sleeping quarters. 2 rows of wooden bunks, straw mattresses, wool blankets folded at the foot of each bed. A stove in the corner, windows that actually opened, shelves along one wall holding wash basins and towels. It was Spartan, but it was clean. A British corporal, young, nervous, clearly uncomfortable, showed them around. Washrooms out back, outhouse beyond that. Meals are in the main house. Breakfast at 700, lunch at 1200, supper at 1800, work starts at 800. He paused, cleared his throat. Mr. Schneider runs a decent operation. He'll treat you fair, but you work hard, yeah? One of the women, Anna, older, a former clerk, asked, "Why is he doing this?" The corporal blinked. "Doing what?" "Taking us, prisoners, Germans." The corporal shrugged. "Labour shortage. War took most of the farm lads. Someone's got to bring in the harvest. Might as well be you." He left. The women stood in the barn looking at the bunks, the stove, the windows, trying to reconcile what they'd expected, brutality, cruelty, camps with barbed wire, with what they'd found. Hannah sat on her assigned bunk. The mattress was thin but serviceable. She thought, "This is the enemy. This is what we destroyed half of Europe to fight." Lunch was served in the farmhouse kitchen. Long wooden table, benches, the smell of bread baking. Thomas Schneider stood at the head of the table. His wife, Mrs. Schneider, grey-haired, sturdy, smiling, set out bowls of stew, mutton with vegetables, thick slices of fresh bread, butter, real food. Not the ersatz substitutes Hannah had choked down for the past 2 years. Real food. Schneider gestured for them to sit. Eat. They sat. They ate. Some of them cried silently into their bowls. Schneider watched them for a moment. Then he said, in German, "I know this is strange. I know you don't know what to make of me. So let me explain." He set down his spoon. "My grandfather came to England in 1871. He was a farmer in Saxony. He wanted a better life. He found it here. He married an Englishwoman, had children, built this farm. My father was born in this house. So was I." He paused. "When the war started, some people in the village gave us trouble, called us Jerrys, questioned our loyalty. But we're British. We've been British for 3 generations. This is our country." He looked at each of them in turn. "I speak German because my mother taught me. She wanted me to remember where my family came from. But I'm English, and you're prisoners of war on my farm. That's the situation. Questions?" Liesel raised her hand. "Why do you speak to us in German?" "Because it's easier for you and because I can." He smiled slightly. "My English farm workers don't speak German. You don't speak English, so we use the language that works." Hannah asked quietly, "Do you hate us?" Schneider considered this. "I hate the war. I hate what the Nazis did. I hate that young men from this village died in France and North Africa, and God knows where else." He paused. "But I don't hate you. You're just women who got caught up in something bigger than yourselves, same as everyone else." He stood. "Finish eating. We start work at 1400. Mrs. Schneider will show you what needs doing." He left. The women sat in silence, eating bread and butter, trying to process the fact that a British farmer with a German name had just said he didn't hate them. "He spoke to us like we were people," Hannah wrote later. "Not enemies, not prisoners, just people." The system that allowed this arrangement was pragmatic, not sentimental. By 1945, Britain faced a severe agricultural labour shortage. The war had conscripted most able-bodied men. Farms needed workers. The government had over 400,000 German POWs who needed to be housed, fed and kept occupied. The solution was obvious: put the prisoners to work. A directive from the Ministry of Agriculture and the War Office established the framework. POWs could be assigned to farms provided certain conditions were met. They would be paid, minimal wages, but wages nonetheless. They would be housed adequately. They would work under supervision but not be subjected to abuse. The logic was threefold. Economic, Britain needed the labour. Diplomatic, humane treatment of German POWs encouraged Germany to reciprocate with British prisoners. Moral, because treating prisoners decently was what separated civilization from barbarism. Thomas Schneider had applied for workers in May. He'd received 41 German women in June, not because he was particularly charitable, because he needed help bringing in the harvest, and this was the labour pool available. But how he treated them, that was his choice. The work was hard. Hannah was assigned to the fields, harvesting hay, stacking sheaves, loading wagons. The sun was hot, her back ached, her hands blistered. But it was purposeful work, physical work, work that produced something tangible. At the end of the first day, Mrs. Schneider brought cold water to the fields. She handed tin cups to each woman, watching as they drank. "You worked well today," she said in English, then repeated it in halting German. "Good, thank you." Hannah stared at her. "Thank you." The British farmer's wife had just thanked German prisoners for their labour. That evening they returned to the barn exhausted. But after supper, more stew, more bread. Schneider appeared with a crate. "Letters," he said. "The Red Cross forwarded these. They're for some of you." He read names. 6 women came forward to claim envelopes. Hannah's name wasn't called, but she watched as Liesel opened hers, hands shaking, tears streaming, and thought, "They're letting us communicate with our families. Prisoners. They're treating us like we still have families." One afternoon, Schneider found Hannah repairing a fence. He watched her work for a moment, then said, in German, "You're good with your hands." "I worked in a factory before the war," Hannah said. "Assembly work. You learn to be precise." He nodded. "The war took a lot of good workers." Hannah looked at him. "Did you lose anyone in the war?" Schneider's face tightened. "My nephew, tank commander, killed in Normandy." "I'm sorry." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "So am I. He was 19. He paused. "His mother, my sister, she wanted me to refuse the POW workers. Said it was wrong to have Germans on the farm after what happened to her son." "What did you tell her?" "I told her the war was over and that hating you wouldn't bring him back." He walked away, leaving Hannah standing by the fence, hammer in hand, processing the fact that a British farmer whose nephew had died fighting Germany was still choosing to treat German prisoners with decency. "He could have been cruel," she wrote. "He had every reason, but he chose otherwise." Anna, the former clerk, worked in the farmhouse, helping Mrs. Schneider with cooking, cleaning, preserving vegetables. One morning Mrs. Schneider showed her a photograph. "My son," she said in slow, careful German. "RAF pilot, shot down over Berlin, 1944. Anna looked at the photograph. Young man, uniform, smiling. "I'm sorry," Anna whispered. Mrs. Schneider put the photograph away. "War is terrible. It takes everyone's children." She handed Anna a basket of beans. "Come, we have work." They spent the morning snapping beans in silence. At one point, Mrs. Schneider said quietly, "I don't blame you for my son. You didn't start the war." Anna looked up. "I wore the uniform." "So did he." Mrs. Schneider kept working. "And now he's gone and you're here and we both have to keep living. That's all there is." That evening, Anna told Hannah about the conversation. "She lost her son and she's teaching me to preserve vegetables. I don't understand." Hannah thought about Schneider, about his nephew, about the choice to be decent despite having every reason not to be. Maybe that's the point, that even after everything, some people choose to be human. If you're seeing this war in a new light, subscribe. The next scene will challenge you even more. Sundays were rest days, no work except essential animal care. The women spent the day washing clothes, writing letters, resting. One Sunday in July, Schneider appeared with a gramophone. He set it up in the barn and wound it carefully. "My grandfather brought this from Germany," he said. 1871. Still works." He placed a record on the turntable. German folk music. A song about mountains and rivers. The women gathered around listening. Some cried, some smiled, some just stared at the gramophone, processing the fact that a British farmer was playing German music for German prisoners on a Sunday afternoon. When the record ended, Liesel asked, "Why?" Schneider looked at her. "Because you're homesick. Because music helps. Because I can." He selected another record. "This one's English. Might as well hear what we listen to." He played British folk songs, American jazz, German lieder. He played whatever was in the box, treating each record with equal care, creating a space where music mattered more than nationality. After an hour, he packed up the gramophone. "I'll bring it next Sunday," he said. Then he left. Hannah sat on her bunk and thought, this is what we fought against. A farmer who plays music for his enemies. This is what we were supposed to hate. In August, Hannah received a letter. Her brother, younger, conscripted in 1944, was alive. He'd been captured by American forces in France and was in a POW camp in Belgium. She read the letter 3 times. Then she approached Schneider. "My brother is alive," she said. Schneider nodded. "That's good news. He's a prisoner, like me." "Yes." Hannah hesitated. Then, "Do you think they're treating him well, the Americans?" Schneider considered this. "I think they're trying to, same as we are." "Why?" "Because that's what civilized nations do." He paused. "I won't lie to you. Some camps are better than others. Some guards are kind, some aren't. But the system, the rules, they're designed to be decent. Whether that happens or not depends on the people enforcing them." Hannah thought about this. "Your system works. Here it does, because I choose to make it work." He looked at her. "Write to your brother, tell him you're all right. Maybe it'll help." She did. That evening she sat in the barn and wrote to her brother. She told him about the farm, about Schneider, about the German name and the British farmer and the music on Sundays. She told him, "I think we were lied to. About everything. The enemy isn't what we were told." By September the harvest was in. The work slowed. Schneider gathered the women one evening and made an announcement. "The government is starting repatriation. Those who want to return to Germany can apply. Those who want to stay in Britain and work on farms, in factories, wherever, can apply for civilian status." He paused. "I'm authorised to keep 20 workers through the winter. If any of you want to stay, let me know. You'll be paid proper wages, civilian rates." The women looked at each other. Hannah thought, go back to Germany, to rubble and starvation, or stay here where there's food and work and a farmer who plays music on Sundays? That night, they debated. Some wanted to go home immediately, to find family, to rebuild. Others had nothing to return to. Still others wanted to stay just long enough to earn money, to send it home, to prepare for whatever came next. Hannah didn't know what she wanted, but she knew one thing. I never expected to have a choice. In October, Schneider's sister visited the farm. She stood in the yard watching the women work, her face hard. Schneider introduced her. "My sister, Mrs. Palmer. Her son was killed in France." Mrs. Palmer looked at the women. Her voice was cold. "Germans." "Yes," Schneider said calmly. "On our family's farm." "Yes." She turned to him. "How can you do this, after what they did to James?" Schneider met her eyes. "But because hating them won't bring him back. Because someone has to do the work. And because treating them decently costs me nothing." Mrs. Palmer looked like she wanted to argue. Instead, she just shook her head and walked to her car. After she left, Hannah approached Schneider. "I'm sorry. About your nephew. About all of it." Schneider looked at her. "You didn't kill him." "My country did." "Yes, and my country killed thousands of yours. The war did that. Not you personally." He paused. "Mrs. Palmer, she's still grieving. She needs someone to blame. You're convenient." He looked at the fields. "But blame doesn't plant crops. Blame doesn't bring in harvests. Work does. Decency does. Moving forward does." Hannah thought, this is what it looks like to choose civilization over hatred. This, right here, in November, 15 women chose repatriation. They were processed, given papers, and transported to ports for the journey home. Hannah was not among them. She'd chosen to stay, at least through the winter. She'd save money. She'd write to her mother. She'd figure out what came next. The morning the transport trucks came, she stood in the yard and watched her companions leave. Liesel was among them. They hugged, briefly, awkwardly. And Liesel whispered, "Thank you for everything." "For what?" "For being here, for making it bearable." The trucks drove away. Hannah stood in the yard with the 25 women who'd chosen to stay and thought, we were supposed to be enemies, but we became something else. Not friends exactly, just people who survived together. Christmas came. Schneider and his wife decorated the farmhouse. Holly, candles, a small tree. They invited the remaining workers to join them for Christmas dinner, turkey, potatoes, gravy, pudding with custard. After the meal, Schneider stood. "I know this isn't your home. I know you'd rather be with your families. But you're here and we're grateful for your work, so thank you." He sat down. No speeches, no sermons. Just thank you. Mrs. Schneider brought out the gramophone. She played Christmas carols, German and English both. The women sat in the farmhouse surrounded by people who'd been their enemies 6 months ago, listening to music that belonged to everyone and no one, and thought, this is what peace looks like. Not treaties, not ceremonies, just this. People choosing to be decent. Subscribe to hear more untold stories from history, stories about the quiet acts that changed everything. Hannah stayed on the farm through 1946. She worked, she saved money, she wrote to her family. In early 1947, she applied for permanent residence in Britain. Her application was approved. She stayed, she worked on the farm for another 3 years, then moved to Norwich and found factory work. She married in 1952, an Englishman, a carpenter, and had 2 children. She kept in touch with Schneider until he died in 1968. She attended his funeral, stood in the back of the church, listened to the eulogy praising his service to the community, his kindness, his decency. No one mentioned the German POWs. No one talked about the choice he'd made to treat enemies like human beings. But Hannah remembered. And when her children asked about the war, she told them about a British farmer with a German name who'd played music on Sundays and said, treating you decently cost me nothing. She told them, that's what civilization looks like. Not grand gestures, just small choices made daily to be better than the war demanded. The truck had stopped in a farmyard that smelled of earth and manure and green things growing. 41 women had climbed down expecting cruelty. What they'd found was a British farmer with a German name, who spoke their language, who'd lost a nephew to the war, and who'd chosen decency anyway. The war had taught them fear. The peace taught them that identity was more complex than nationality, that enemies could share names and languages, and that humanity persisted in the smallest gestures. A gramophone on Sunday, a kind word in a mother tongue, the refusal to let hatred be the final word.